So imagine that you're having problems with a coworker and it's affecting your quality of life. Hey, I'm Dr. Lana Denny, Bulletproof Babes, self-defense based on behavioral sciences. And we're doing something that we've never done before. And I'm going to do a live coaching session with somebody who is actually having that issue. So, Olivia, welcome. Thank you for being so brave and letting me film you. And hopefully, this can help other people.
Great. Looking forward to it.
All right. So now Olivia and I know each other, but in a very narrow context, just professionally. And let me just tell you that I am a life coach. I'm not a mental health professional. I am a chiropractor, but I've had over 120,000 patient visits with people who are in physical distress or mental distress, and usually a combination of both. And I've also studied behavioral sciences for the past 2 decades just because it is my passion. And I like to combine all that to help people. And so we're going to have a session together today. And I know a little bit about you. I know you work in a white collar environment, more like a white lab coat environment. And you happened to mention to me in passing that you were having a bit of an issue with a coworker. So, what would you like to tell me about that?
It's hard to know where to start. So I'll give you some background. I've been working with this person for 8 years. And I often find myself reporting to this person. So there is a bit of a power
Okay.
dynamic at
So
play there.
is this person your boss?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Not the whole time we've known each other, but for the last, I think, 5 years now, this person's been
Oh,
my boss.
okay. Did you
Yeah.
start off as coworkers together?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
And yeah, so we started off as coworkers and then they ended up in a management position and I report to them now. So, um, probably starting 4 years ago, I started having some difficulties with this person. And there's a lot of different things that have happened. But at first, I would find myself spending a lot of time outside of work after having a conversation with this person and picking apart everything that they had said to me because I left the conversation feeling like I had done something incorrectly or done something wrong in the way that I had performed my work. And so I would spend honestly hours with my partner dissecting conversations and being like trying to figure out what I could do to change my behavior or my work practice so that I was providing like a better work product to my manager. And then after like a year and a half of that, I started working with a coach specifically to focus on how to deal with conflict
Okay.
in the workplace. And that
Yeah.
was specifically around this relationship. So I worked with her for a year just
Wow.
on this and basically came to the terms that it wasn't about me, these situations that I was finding myself in, like the comments and the way I was being communicated to, that it wasn't about me. And so I was able to sort of like remove the negative feedback and comments and sort of aggressive way of communicating from a reflection of myself. And that way, like the last year or so, I've basically sort of stepped back from interacting with this person as much as I can. And then when I do interact with them, I try not to take it personally. And so I don't, these days, I don't spend so many hours dissecting what I've done wrong, but I still often leave interactions with this person feeling really disoriented and a little bit attacked and feeling like, what just happened? What am I supposed to take away from this? What actually just got communicated? Um, so those are the broad strokes
Okay.
of our background, I guess. And there's obviously a lot more specifics, but
Yeah. And may I ask, is this a man or a woman?
A man.
A man. Okay, so just so I understand, you guys were coworkers together for 3 years, and then he moved up into a management position and all of a sudden went from being your coworker to your boss.
Yeah.
And then about a year and a half into it, his behavior started to get a little bit more, what did I say, aggressive towards you. Is that
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah. Aggressive and like standoffish. Definitely.
Okay.
Nitpicky,
Okay.
unregulated, stuff like that.
Okay. And well, but how is this creating a problem for you now?
Well, it creates a problem for me now because when I do have to interact with him, he's my boss, so I can't just avoid him. I have to strategize when and how I talk to him. His preferred communication style is on the phone, so he's not place-based with me. He's in a different office. So the only ways that we communicate are on the phone or via email, and he prefers on phone communication. And so when I do have to communicate with him, I find myself in really long phone calls, um, being talked at or sort of cornered verbally. And when we are in person, it's even worse, where
Oh,
like a couple months ago, it was like 5 o'clock. It was the end of the day. And I found him like we were in person and he just started talking at me about a meeting that he had been on with my other boss, where my other boss expressed displeasure with my work. At least that's what I thought I had understood from what he was saying to me. And instead of him communicating with my other boss about the plan that he and I had made together and agreed upon months before and was in progress, like I had been working on this work product, he didn't do any of that. And basically turned around and was like, you need to get this done now. And then it degraded into a conversation where I was like, look, some of the challenges I've been having is that I've been making decisions and you've been throwing roadblocks. Like, I'll make a decision and then direct our contractors to do something, and you turn around and tell them not to do it. And that's mostly because you don't like the decision I made or you didn't have enough information about why I made that decision. And that degraded into like mostly me listening to him talk. And at the end of it, I was like, do you just want to control every decision around this product or this project? And he said, yeah. So that's the kind of thing that I have to navigate, is like trying to understand what it is that he wants. It's like, and I do not read in between the lines very well. So it just takes a lot of my mental energy to understand what he's trying to get from me, what he's trying to communicate to me. And then, like, basically, he puts up barriers to me being able to get my work done. And that makes things really frustrating and challenging to complete anything. So, yeah, I would say the main issue is that I just find it sort of distressing to have to communicate with him. And I often feel cornered and like just, I just feel uncomfortable during
yeah,
the conversation.
it sounds like a really stressful interaction for you.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you think that he gets out of it?
I don't know. I stopped trying to think about that like a couple years ago. Um, he does disclose a lot of like things to me about his personal life. He tells me a lot of things. So maybe it's just like an outlet to get his negative emotions like across. And it's not real. This is when I started realizing like it's not about me. It's like something else that's going on at home, or like he's upset with one of my other bosses or something like that, or he's just hasn't slept or had a bad day. And I don't think that's an excuse. but it helped me disentangle my own like emotional
Yeah.
reaction. And I I have no idea what he gets out of it.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe you would have more of a sense of that.
Well, I'm just listening to you, and it sounds like he's trying to command as much of your attention as he can.
Yeah.
Is
Yes.
that true?
That's true. Yeah.
And I'm wondering what his motive is in doing that, because I think that can help us in the situation if we figure out like why, what is his why? Um, and I'm just
Okay.
going to throw this out there because it's kind of an obvious thing. Do you think he's attracted to you?
No, I don't think there's
Okay.
that dynamic at play.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Okay. But he
Um,
likes your attention.
it seems like, you know, when we do interact, it's definitely like I'm paying attention to him. And but I think that's how all of us feel when we interact with him. Um, and I think he definitely treats his female subordinates a little differently than his male subordinates, but I don't think it's sexual or anything like that. If
Okay.
that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I just wanted to rule that out. Um,
Yeah. I think we can rule that out.
yeah. So what do you observe in the way that he treats the female and male employees differently?
Well, I find that he often it feels that he often attributes my job well done or my work to the male colleague that I worked with. So a lot of my successes, I feel like, get attributed to the fact that I had asked my male colleague to support me for a week during the month-long deployment or whatever it was. You know, like he's said things to me on projects like, oh, well, you wouldn't have been able to do that without so and so there. Right. So it's like, even
Oh,
when he tries to give a compliment, like you did so well, it's like, and you wouldn't have done it without so and so there. And I, it's just, yeah. So that kind of thing
yeah.
happens a lot, not like getting full credit for my work. And on the other side of it, I do see him lift up our like male colleagues a lot more than my female colleagues. Um, and then yeah, he often just makes me feel like uncomfortable um with certain things that he says or does. Like one time he came up behind me at a conference and like started rubbing my shoulders and I was like, what's happening? I'm being touched by my boss. And he stopped right away and was like, oh wait, I'm not supposed to do that. And I was like, I don't know how to react. Like I'm surrounded by a bunch of my friends right here. We're like in a public space. And like I just sort of shrugged it off, but it was weird.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it's nothing like he's never like overtly sexist, but it's subtle things that happen again and again that make me feel uncomfortable. And I know that a couple of my other female colleagues have felt the same way because you know we've talked about it. Um,
So
yeah,
yeah, I just have to ask you because it's really interesting that you feel that he doesn't have any sexual attraction to you, but yet he inappropriately touched you. Um,
yeah, totally. I think that was him misunderstanding our closeness. Like he definitely has or thinks that he has really close friendships with other staff in my section that I'm really close with. And I think he like misunderstands that sometimes that means that him and I are really close. which to me it does not.
Yeah.
And him and I have had, like I know a lot of personal things about him, and we've spent time like socializing in work settings outside of work hours, right? Um, so and he knows personal things about me. I've known him for 8 years. So, he may think that
Okay.
there's more of a closeness there than I do. And in that moment, he probably wasn't thinking. It's only happened that one time, and that was like 3 years ago. So
So,
yeah,
yeah. So do you think that he's seeking like emotional intimacy with you, not sexual intimacy, but like
yeah.
wants more of a connection with you personally?
I don't know if it's something that he wants from me, but I am really good at emotional attuning with other people. So I attune really well to others and reflect really well to others. And I'm a really good listener. And so people often tell me a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And so he probably like isn't coming to me. I wouldn't say that he intentionally comes to me to find emotional connection, but I think that he does find that with me.
Yeah.
And so maybe, like, whereas for me, I'm like, this is happening to me with
Yeah.
almost everyone that I interact with. So it doesn't necessarily mean that I'm close with the person, even though I may know deep things about them that they haven't told other people. But for that person, it's a different experience. Um, so
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah. So what would a win look like for you in this situation?
not having to interact with him anymore, frankly, would be the best situation for me. Um, but I think that's not super realistic right now unless I decide to take like drastic action, or unless I leave my job, which is not on the table for me right now. So I think more realistically, what would be a win is understanding some tools on how to navigate these conversations that I have to have with him, and figure out how to set some boundaries. I've never given him any feedback, like any of
Mm,
this at all. Like, I've never had any conversations with him where I was honest about my side of the interaction. And I'm not afraid to do that, but I just don't really know how to navigate that situation with the power dynamic at play. Um, so, yeah, some tools for navigating would be helpful, and like some ways to set boundaries.
okay. What would those boundaries be around?
Probably like requirements for interaction. So, like, what kind of communication styles are expected and needed, and how frequently, um,
Okay.
and like
So,
exactly about what.
yeah, so I guess I should have asked, how do you feel like he's violating your boundaries now?
It's violating my boundaries now. I mean, I've talked about some obvious physical examples and like verbal examples, but I think not letting me do my job is a big one. Like the reversal of my decision making and direction to our contractors who are like work, like our my role in my job is really self-directed. We are assigned projects and then we run those projects with little oversight, and um, that's how we're trained and that's what we're expected to do. And so our bosses give us jobs with the expectation that we're going to be making decisions in good faith and executing projects basically start to finish. Like, we don't need tons of micromanaging. That's the way that we're trained, and that's the purpose of our job. So to be in a situation where I'm being micromanaged is one, counterproductive, and two, I find it offensive, um, especially from a person who knows me for this long and knows that I produce excellent work products. So I find that to be frustrating. I don't know if that's a boundary being crossed.
It sounds
I
like it. I mean, it sounds like he's micromanaging you.
He's definitely micromanaging me. I think other clear boundaries that get crossed are like telling me personal information or medical information about colleagues, complaining to me about my other boss's behavior, telling me things about his home life that I don't care about, are things like I just don't need to know that or want to know that. Nothing inappropriate, but just like I don't care that your kids kept you up last night. Like I just need you to sign my time card or whatever. Um, so yeah, I would say that those are the other boundaries, just like getting way more information from him than I need. And yeah, the constant complaining is it's old and it's getting old.
Okay, that's a whole lot. That's a lot of different issues with this guy.
Yeah. Well, it's been a long relationship.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds to me, and I could be totally wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong, that of the all those issues, probably the most problematic for you right now, the most challenging one, is that you're not being allowed to do your job fully in the capacity that you're supposed to be doing without him making other choices after you've made decisions at work, and then him coming in and undoing that. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Have you guys, what would it be feasible for you to have a conversation about that and what his expectations are around your role?
I could. I could, yeah.
Well, I mean, only you know if this is like a feasible thing or not.
It's feasible. I could do it. Would it be effective? I don't think so.
Okay.
Yeah. I think this is like, after a year-long coaching relationship with an executive coach, I did try a lot of stuff like that. Like I tried to
Yeah.
set up a monthly call with him, which he didn't want to have. And then it was like, okay, well, do you prefer email or phone communication? And how often do you need to know stuff? And it's almost like he forgets things, or I don't know, but he definitely doesn't seem to understand that I have a need to resolve something between us. And I feel like I almost like I could talk to him about like it would be easiest to start with a bite-sized issue like that. But I think I wonder if it's time to have the real talk with him about like
Oh.
the bigger
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
issues, at play and how I basically have felt uncomfortable or unrepresented in like uncomfortable in our relationship or unrepresented in the way that he talks about me to my other bosses or other staff in our branch and the way that that affects like my reputation and my work. So, yeah, I've been avoiding him because that's the stuff that's like on the tip of my tongue.
Yeah. Well, how do you think that would go over if you had that conversation with him?
I don't know. Probably really poorly, but I guess it would depend on how I packaged it. Um, yeah, I don't know.
Hmm. I mean, ha have you ever called him out before on any of his decisions that he has overrode you on, that you've made a decision and then he went and reversed it?
No, no, but that would be a good thing to do.
It just comes to mind because it's something so concrete. Doesn't have anything to do with emotions or feelings or anything personal. It's like a
Hmm.
work decision that you're empowered to make, and then he's coming along and disempowering you. Is that right?
Okay. Yeah, definitely.
So
Yeah, and it's such silly stuff too. It's like I had a 45-minute conversation with him about colors of tags, and I was like, wait, what is happening? Like, why do you even care about this? This is such a
right.
detailed thing. Like, it's not like groundbreaking stuff that I'm working on.
Yeah.
So
Uh,
yeah, that would be a good place to start, maybe.
yeah. I think you're right. I think that would be a good place to start because it just, I mean, of his many transgressions, it sounds like that one, the undermining your power at work, is probably the one or it sounds to me like the one that's eating at you the most.
Yeah, definitely. It's
Yeah.
definitely what gets in the way most.
Okay. Well, I want to be really respectful of your time. And so I just want to ask, was there something of value? What was most of value to you in this relationship? I mean, in our conversation today.
Um, Probably what we just touched upon, like the tool you gave me at the end there about like dealing with something more concrete rather than something more heady and emotional. Um, I think one thing that would be helpful is suggestions on how to communicate that stuff. So, like, if that happens again, where I make a decision and then he reverses it and it's something inconsequential, right? It's something minor that just kind of derails my whole process. How do I, like, what's the best way to say, like, look what you just did?
Yeah.
Did that really matter?
Yeah.
Is it like, do you recommend doing that like on the phone or via email or?
Yeah. I would recommend doing that via email because it memorializes it going forward.
Okay.
And then there's no he said, she said. It's there in the email.
Okay.
But I'm glad that
Great.
you got one concrete point out of it today that you're going to address with him. That's a non-emotional issue, I think, because of the male-female dynamic. That's probably the best starting point for you. And we can talk about those other issues or get a little bit deeper into that next time.
Okay.
Okay, so I want to be respectful of your time. Thank you so much for being vulnerable. Just hold on the call with me. And
Okay.
thank you so much for letting me film this and post this. I really appreciate it. And I hope that helps some other people watching out there. And I'll see you soon.